In the social media reaction genre, silly comments are considered especially heinous. At Dear Woke Christian, the dedicated content creators who investigate these horrible comments are members of an elite squad known as the Dusty Comments Unit. These are their stories.
And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, so you know what we're about to do. Tonight, we are going to go over, just not with a fine-tooth comb, but we're going to watch the Edward Steve, Jason House interview. And if you're not familiar, Jason House, of course, is the young man that's running for mayor of Dolton. And most of us have become deeply ingrained, dare I say, the undocumented Dolton residents because of what's been going on, the shenanigans and hijinks with their current mayor, Tiffany Henyard. So tonight I wanted to go over that, and I thought it would be fun to do that with y'all. So we're going to watch it. I watched probably the first 10 minutes of it. So actually a lot of this is going to be fresh reaction in real time because I didn't watch the whole thing. However, I think it would be good to watch it with y'all. So I want to say thank you everybody who's already tapped in. Thank you, Francis. Good to see you. Good to see you. Chloe with Spunk. Always good to see Mandy in the building. Thank you so much, Mandy, for stopping through. Always good to see you. Thank you so much. And tonight, like I said, just jump on in. Go and hit that like button. Become a member of the best live chat on the internet. Real quick, let me move this camera. I call myself doing some camera movement today, management today, and I feel like it. Okay, that's probably okay. I think that's pretty good. But yeah, become a member of the best live chat on the internet. Doesn't cost you a thing. All you gotta do is hit that like button and jump up into the chat. I do want to say thank you to all 32,000 of you all who have already become subscribers to the channel. Thank you so much. My goal is to hit 50,000 subscribers before the end of April. Now I'm thinking about it because the election for mayor of Dolton actually is in April too. So maybe I should say I'm looking to hit 50,000 subscribers before Tiffany Henyard is booted out of Dolton. What y'all think about that, Dolton trustees? You like that one? What you think about that, huh? You like that? 50,000 subscribers before Tiffany gets kicked out? What you think? 50 before they kick out Tiffany? I like that. I'm going to go with that one. 50 before we kick out Tiffany. That's so crazy, man. We're definitely the undocumented residents of Dolton. We really are cheering for better things for Dolton. And hopefully you'll see it. So shout out to Jason House. Shout out to Dolton trustees that are in the chat. Shout out to Miss Mandy. She adding 5 people to the undocumented Dolton residents right off the bat. I love it. Now, y'all know, if you got a membership from Miss Mandy, please go ahead and real quick and tell her thank you so much. Go and put Mandy in the chat and let her know that you appreciate her blessing 5 new undocumented members of the Dolton residency. Thank you so much. All right, so tonight I just want to go over this. Feel free to ask questions in the chat, but I'm gonna probably do a little bit of stopping and going. But at the end of the day, really, I want to hear exactly what Jason House had to say. I want to hear what there we go. Yeah, Chloe, absolutely. Welcome to the family. I want to hear what Jason House had to say. I want to hear the questions that Edward Steve asked. If you're not familiar with him, he's the former trustee, and he gives himself a very interesting title. I think you all will really enjoy it. So with no further ado, let's go and get them in here, and let's see what they got to say. Let's see what they got to say. I didn't do that right. Now we did.
Greetings. This is former future trustee Edward Steve.
Shout out to former future trustee Edward Steve. Edward Steve, of course, is on Team House. He is running with Jason and Kiana and the others on his slate, on Jason House's slate. So he calls himself the former trustee. Who will be the future trustee? I think that is adorable. Shout out to that. Very creative. I like it. Let's go.
And we are here for a special interview with the man who the village is looking forward to changing our community. The man who's here to lay out his plan so we get to know him better and to get Dolton out of the mess that we are in. So, with no further ado, we are here with Senior Trustee Jason House. How you feel today?
I'm feeling wonderful, and I like that former future. I like the future part much more than the former. You deserve to be up there with us, all the work you do behind the scenes. So,
yes, sir.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Appreciate it. So we're going to get started right away. You see, I got my notes this time because I got some good questions. The first question, who are you? Tell us a little bit about you, Jason House.
Jason House is somebody that grew up in Dolton, so I actually moved to Dolton in 3rd grade. Roosevelt Elementary School, went to Thornton for a few years. I did transfer from Thornton into another high school, went away to college, University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, and then graduated 2001. Maybe I shouldn't tell my age, I don't know. But graduated with a marketing degree, had bought my first home back in Dolton, and then also worked in the community as the bank manager, U.S. Bank on Sibley. So at 15 plus years in banking, serving the community, and that's kind of just been my passion.
Yeah. So a lot of people, when you out going door to door, some people remember you from U.S. Bank, right there on Sibley.
Surprisingly, a lot more than I would anticipate. I hadn't worked there in a little bit over 10 years, but a lot more people than I would imagine.
Okay. Okay. So when you hear us call you the senior trustee, that title, what does that mean?
It just means that I've had the most consecutive years on the board. You have to make sure that you earn every title that you get. So, I mean, years of service, I think, of course, is one thing, but it's what you do with those years that's going to matter. And I like to feel that I've grown every year in there, and that's in large part due to the residents, listening to them and them challenging me, and me stepping up to the challenge.
Okay. So what was the first year you ran for trustee?
First year I ran for trustee, I actually ran for trustee some years ago. I ran in 2011 unsuccessfully. Then I ran again in 2017 and was successful. And since then, I've had 7 years of continued service.
Okay. Okay. What was your greatest achievement in that first term as being trustee?
I would have to say our greatest achievement, I think you were on the finance committee with me yourself, Trustee Tammy Brown, and I was appointed to the chair of the finance committee. And at that time, we did everything we could to make sure that there was transparency with the financials. We were able to have monthly financial reports actually provided. Prior to that, we really did not even get monthly financial reporting. But through the work that we all did together, we got a monthly financial notes. We were able to review it, and we started to see the reserves actually build up, in particular in our general fund, which is where primarily our finances come from, or our bills are paid out of. So when you take a look at the report, on Lori's report in particular, it showed in 2022, in our general fund, we had a little bit over $5 million of surplus. And then it also showed the sharp decline within a 2-year period. But I think that we collectively, we really forced the financial reporting. And then with that financial reporting, we were able to build up some reserves. So I think that's probably our greatest accomplishment.
Okay, I'm going to just real quick jump in very quick. I like how this is going so far. And, shout out to Jason, shout out to Edward Steve. But I noticed something here about Jason. Did you notice that he has not mentioned anything touchy-feely? Everything he's mentioned is tangible. I'm assuming I could go and find these financial reports. I'm assuming I can actually see the tangible report and how it was gathered and all that kind of stuff like that. He didn't say anything about, loving on people and making people feel good and giving away stuff. Notice he's not mentioned anything. Now, I don't know. He might turn the corner next question and talk about giving away things that turn into Black Santa Claus. But notice he doesn't do any of that. He's only talking about tangible things. His biggest accomplishment is transparency. How crazy is that? Let's go. And by the way, last thing, this could have been any city in America. He's not talking about anything that is germane to Dolton. And so far, it's only stuff that could pass on. You could be talking about this in Missouri. You can be talking about this in Tennessee. You can be talking about this somewhere in Washington State. Again, this sounds like just a normal dude. He's not leaning on the giveaways. He's not leaning on the freebies. He's not leaning on the welfare nature of the township or the welfare nature of Dolton as a whole. But let's see what else. Maybe he'll roll up and surprise me. Let's see.
I think it's funny you said that. I know I did. I took that for granted now because it's missing. That there was a finance meeting every month,
yes.
And you looked at the finance report, and then when we did the budget, if you came to the budget meeting, you got a copy of the budget, and you went through line by line, every expenditure, everything, every money coming in, going out. And we've been missing that for the last 3 years.
No, we set it up on a schedule.
Yeah.
Every month, the last Wednesday of the month, we came in, we went over it, and at that point in time, you might have 5 residents show up, 6 residents. But for those who did, they cared about our money. They deserve to know what's going on, along with everybody else. It was posted on the Village of Dolton website, so people can go back and take a look at it. Going over the budget, so you want to make sure that we're being as responsible as we can, and I think that's obviously that's missing today. And as there was a shift, and of course you weren't on the board any longer, and the finance committee was transferred from our oversight. Things really was another part of the decline.
Yeah. Well, before, residents don't know, before the trustees had committees and everybody would do the committee meetings. And then when this last election, when I lost my seat and then she just took all the committees, gave it to 2 people, but they don't have no committee meetings. That's how you encourage transparency. With having committee meetings, you talk about everything before it comes to the board.
But I don't know, I'm sure you'll remember, even when this administration changed over, the committees used to have reports on the agenda, and then you would talk about what each committee is doing. Upon the transition in this new administration, the committee reports were kind of obliterated, and no committee person was even allowed to prepare, and it became a fight to host a committee meeting. And that's part of the transparency that we talk about.
Yeah, and it became a fight because she would tell the department heads, don't go to our committee meetings, and if you do go, then the job would be threatened and all that. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
What was it like going into this administration, going to your second term as trustee?
Going in there was a ton of optimism, or the thought that we were going to transition. I think that for me, going in as being reelected, every election, has its own energy and its own feel. I felt really, really fortunate after going out there, because when you go to get elected, you think you've done a good job, but you're at the mercy of the residents, and that's the way it should be. So winning that election and getting the support, the renewed support, also brought some more optimism. We were promised some changes, and I'll say we being myself, Trustee Belcher, Clerk Key, we were promised changes and let down pretty quickly, and that's frustrating. I had to go on an apology tour. I still have to go on an apology tour, but we remain focused to the original values that we promised to do as trustees. Just because one individual went off in a different direction doesn't mean that we have to that we had to deviate from our plan. So I think that we've unfortunately had to fight hard. We work hard to do it for the residents, and we see a future forward that we can be proud of.
Yeah, that's real right there.
Before he goes any further, I just want to give a shout out to Miss Bradshaw. Thank you so much. I'm getting that exact same tenor as well. I don't know it emphatically, but I love how you said this, Miss Bradshaw. She just said real quickly, I watched this interview earlier and got the impression that Dolton was doing quite well before the Henyard administration. I've heard that from several people as well when I talk to like Paul Roberts and such like that. And she says, lastly, I think Tiffany pushes poverty to control her narrative for money. And I think you really hit the nail on the head, because it kind of goes along with what I said a moment ago. I noticed Jason doesn't talk about any giveaways. He's not talking about anything, for lack of a better term, buying votes or buying support. So you might be right on the money, Ms. Bradshaw. Let's see how it goes. Thank you for that.
Almost, people say, well, y'all ran together. What happened? And I would like to compare it to, you get into a relationship with somebody, and when you get into the relationship, it starts off really good. And then when you actually start living, you realize, oh, this person crazy. You know what I mean? And then you have to really start parting ways and figure out ways to work together. So would you say, what happened? In short, because we know what happened, but in short, people who don't know, like, what was the breakdown?
Well, and I think it's been documented very well. For me, I think one of the key moments, and it happened early, is as we started having disagreements publicly in the board meeting, and we would decide that we were going to take a vote. And in the meeting, Ms. Henyard would say, you guys go on to do a vote, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. Essentially saying, I'm just going to completely disregard what's being voted on. And what's being voted on is the law. And at that point in time, it's like, well, we're in trouble. We have some things to figure out. I assumed that once we had legislative council or we went to court, that it would kind of get cleared up very quickly. And the courts moved a lot slower than the needs of this community, and that was even more discouraging.
Yeah, good point. The next question is, we decided to do a recall
Yeah.
pretty early on. What motivated that decision? And I think in the NBC documentary, they really documented why we did the recall and stuff like that. What's your take on the recall?
I felt like, and I just talked about it in saying that once we realized that ordinances were going to be disregarded, that was my turning point for me, where things are going in the wrong direction. We have to stand up and try to make an attempt. And it's unfortunate, the court ruling. I think that the residents spoke loud and clear during the recall. I think we did our job and our due diligence. And even with that, we have to make sure that a lot more information and a lot more attention came to Dolton. Unfortunately, negative attention, because you don't want to draw negative attention. I would say from a board member standpoint, our first obligation was to try to sit down and try to figure things out. And you know how many meetings we had with pastors and talking about trying to have just getaways where we can bring bring it together.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And not only did it not work, the energy from Ms. Hinyard and team got a lot more vicious towards the board. And more importantly, I want to say towards the board, towards the residents and towards the community. And once it starts getting to that boiling point, you have to take some extreme steps. I think the recall was a last resort. And within that short amount of time, we already had hit that last resort. And even throughout that time frame, you know how many meetings we've had trying to see if we can smooth things over to not go in that direction. But it became increasingly clear that communication or cooperation was not going to be had in this administration. So I felt it was a necessary step.
Yeah, and it's important to point out, people say, well, can't y'all just sit down and talk about it and sit back and can't y'all figure this out in the back room? We've had meetings, we've had intervention.
Yes.
Can y'all do this? Can y'all do that? It is hard to sit down and compromise with somebody who doesn't want to compromise.
Yes.
And we always compromise. I want to hit on the first budget and I've hit this on other interviews, the type of money that this administration had starting out. We gave her so much: new fire trucks, new police parks, new police officers. We wasn't able to do that for the last 4 to 6 years of put that much money in the budget, but because there was reserves coming out of COVID. Talk about the money that we voted for this administration when they first got in.
Well, I think I'll say we voted for it for the people because we saw the need and we saw that we had the ability to do it. Mm-hmm. And try not to focus as much on the back and forth that is the obvious highlight of this administration. Ultimately, it's something that we saw we needed, we had the ability to do it, and we pushed forward. And we were hopeful with the new administration that these things would be done properly. And right now, we're just not getting that. It's not. And on the minute that we recognize that it's not being done properly, it's not being done transparently and with community inclusion, of course, we have to put up more guardrails because that is the position of a trustee. Mm-hmm. That's what we're supposed to do, and that's what we've held firm with doing.
Okay. The question I have for you next is, what's your thoughts on the chaos at the board meetings? What's your take on that?
It's not the reflection of the Dolton that I know. The chaos in the board meetings is probably the biggest frustration, and the chaos is all set up by the agenda. That agenda sets the tone, and there was one meeting where we talked about it.
Call the roll, Clerk Key.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Now you got something else. Go ahead.
So, just the entire meeting is set up for an argument. Information is not given to the board, and then we get in here. It's set up to say, "Yes, I did." I keep asking the same thing. Let's put it on the website. We don't have to go back and forth. We don't have to do any of this show. The same item has been put on the agenda for the last 9 meetings. I'm exaggerating. But the mayor did say she's going to keep on putting it up there, knowing that there's not enough support for it. It's set up just for us to come in here and argue. That's the whole intention. Come in here and argue and then state, I don't want to go back and forth. I mean, we know most people say definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. It's insane to put up the same item knowing it doesn't have support. But it's set up for the argument, it's set up and then to twist it and say, oh, board, you're doing this and you're doing that. It really doesn't make sense, but if it has to be put up there 9 times or put up there 15 times for us to go and do it. But just understand, when we talk about why the whole back and forth, the meeting is set up that way. As board members, we can look at the packet. And I'm sure the mayor, everybody looks at the packets by now and say, oh, that one right there, that's going to be the argument. Corporate bills, we know that's where it go up. So like, well, I don't think even most people tune in until about an hour into the meeting. So that way they can get the corporate bills. But again, the meeting is set up for an argument. Sorry that it's set up that way, and hopefully we'll do different in the next meeting. Thank you.
Trustee, that's definitely not true. And then you should basically pause on the things you actually say. If it's set up for argument, then why take the bait?
The mayor has the ability to kind of set the meeting agenda. And of course, all board members should have the ability to put things on there. We had a period of time where we had to fight just to get something on the agenda. Normally the clerk would prepare the agenda. That agenda had been taken away from the clerk for about a 2.5, 3 year period, specifically to prevent board members from getting access to the agenda. And the reason that I'm highlighting that itself, in communities where things are functioning, you start with the agenda, you speak with one another. If you don't agree with what's on the agenda, it doesn't go on there. And that way you can, behind the scenes, have a conversation, make sure that you don't come out into the public and just have a lot of back and forth and show the worst sides. And this administration, which was also talked about during that meeting, things are put on the agenda specifically to try to prove a point. And the only point being proven is that we're fighting with each other and it's hurting the community. So I really emphasize the importance of that agenda and a leader that's going to make sure that if things are put on the agenda, if there's a disagreement, pull it off the table, work behind the scenes, and move forward. And that's where a lot of the chaos really starts off. Yeah. And then, of course, you get into the meeting and there's accusations hurled, lies told. Yeah. And now you have to, you're not going to let somebody sit there and just tell a lie on you and say nothing about it, because then publicly people believe that. Yeah. So you have to try to strike that balance of, how do I clear up this lie that's being told about me, mm-hmm. and do it with a way that's dignified so that people still respect me. And that's a very hard position. And that's the position that the trustees and the board have been put in for the last 4 years. Yeah. I commend all the trustees, Trustee Norwood, yourself as a board member, Trustee Tammy Brown, Trustee Belcher, and Clerk Key, who sometimes gets lost in the shuffle on the ability to really sit in there and speak that truth and work to do it in a dignified way that the residents can really receive.
Yeah, it's hard to maintain your composure when somebody's blatantly not only lying on you, talking to you so disrespectfully and aggressively.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's a hard thing. How do you maintain your cool in the sense that people say, well, should Jay speak up more? Should Jason say this more? How do you maintain your coolness and your dignity and not get baited in? Because she tries to bait you. One time she cut you off.
His name is Jason.
She said so many things so
that's why he cool.
How do you maintain your cool?
I want to commend Trustee Norwood, Trustee Tammy Brown, Trustee Kiana
Trustee.
Belcher.
Trustee.
Floor is mine, Mayor.
Trustee.
I want to commend
Trustee.
them for standing in here during these attacks.
Trustee.
I know the mayor does not want to hear
Trustee.
what he said. However,
this is why the meetings get out of order. Can you stay on track with what we're talking about, which is corporate bills? If you want to say your comment, you can say your comment after it's a motion and a second on the floor, Trustee. 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 It's a motion and second on the floor regarding the bills. Can we stay the course?
Getting towards the bills.
For Trustee House, I want to give, if I had a plaque, I would give you Calmest Black Guy of the Year award, because I was at home getting.
Y'all go ahead and flood the chat with some snowflakes. Cause Jason is cool. I gotta give him that. And it ain't just because his name is Jason. He cool. Y'all gonna put some snowflakes in the chat because he cool. He ain't a snowflake as far as I know, but he definitely is cool as a fan. Let's go.
Riled up, wondering how. I'm like, there must be something going on. So how is he keeping a level here? But in government, you have to.
I'm glad that for those who think that I maintain my cool, I'm glad that that's portrayed. Many times I think about it that I'm in the meeting for the residents. So many of my comments are directed to the community, to the residents, and to those that have come to observe our thought process. So as much as possible, I try to make my comments in their direction, and I don't want to go back and forth with somebody who clearly is not looking for an answer to compromise. They're looking for a fight, and I'm not going to give you the fight you're looking for. I'll make my comments for the record and for the residents, and then it's time to move on.
Okay. All right, so we got to deal with the infamous "Don't pray for me no more" statement.
All right, we're gonna leave that. All right, let's real quick get a little bit of breathing room. So far, I know somebody said he doesn't seem optimistic. I'll be honest with you. I don't think Jason wants to be mayor. What I mean by that is I think he is taking this role because he supports the community of Dolton and he knows what they need. They need a leader. They need somebody that's going to do it. And he said, you know what? I'm going to put on my big boy pants and I'm going to do exactly what needs to be done. You can put an ice cube. I think there's an ice cube emoji in there. Let's see ice. Let's just see ice. Oh yeah, there's an ice cube in there. There we go. Drop an ice cube emoji. That's even better. But I think Jason would much rather be a support staff person supporting a good leader. But I think he realizes that this is what's needed. I am who is needed at this time. Therefore, I'm going to step into this position. So I don't think it's not that he's not optimistic. I think he's measured. He doesn't seem to be super amped up. I'm sure he probably gets turned up during Bears games or whatever like that, but he doesn't seem super energetic and super amped up, hyper charismatic or anything like that, which is fine, Trust me. I'm definitely of the more energetic ilk, but I can respect him as well. Um, I I don't think he's out for the title. I see Debbie's right there with me. He's not out for the title. Whereas there's no way in the world you can convince me that Tiffany is not fiending for the title. I mean, she's trying to mainline the title. For crying out loud, she calls herself the super mayor. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, Jason is a mayor pro tem. He don't run around here saying I'm mayor pro tem house. I don't ever hear him mention it. So those are just my little observations. So far, no, I'm warming up. I'm feeling good about this. I'm feeling good about him. Dolton Trustee says he ran for mayor before. Okay. And feel free now, set me straight. I'm open to being wrong. I'm open to being corrected. Was it out of a need? And I'll have to do some research. Was it a need-based situation where he's like looking across the landscape, like, look, my community's in trouble. Let me see if I can rescue them. Let me see if I can fill the spot. Or was it, hey, I just want to get out there and do something. And I feel like, to me, I don't even if he ran before, I still don't get the vibe that I hate to use the word vibe. I don't get the, for lack of a better term, vibe that he's doing it for the title, as we mentioned before, and such like that. So I'm definitely, yeah. I just think he's just measured. I just think like maybe I don't get that he's like, oh man, I just want to be king. I can't wait for them to call me president house. I don't get that. I get like, you know what? I'm a if he said he's a servant leader, it makes sense. This would be the example, in my opinion, of a servant leader. Now, I'm a leader at my church. Y'all know I'm a deacon. Matter of fact, we got a good deacons meeting tomorrow planned, but we already parsed through everything. So we already know what we're going to talk about. There ain't going to be no barbs and no fisticuffs tomorrow. But everybody there is a servant. They recognize that we serve Christ and we serve this community, this congregation, willingly and with joy. So that is it. So I don't, if Jason rolled up and said he was a servant leader, which I don't know, maybe he does say it, I would totally believe it. Now, try to convince somebody that Tiffany is a servant leader. I'll wait. I think we all know, like, that don't even rhyme with her name. Let's go. Thank you so much, Dolton trustees, for sure.
Don't pray for me no more. How did that happen? Because it really pushed you to that point.
Brother Moore, you prayed us in on unity. You prayed us in and came with the most divisive speech I heard in my life. Don't pray for me no more.
But it still wasn't super, but it was to the point. How did you get to that point?
It's one of those moments that you don't know is coming. You are talking, and then after the fact, I get a lot of calls from people saying, "Okay, man, can I pray for you?" Which I thought is humorous.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of different things going on at that particular moment. During that time, you had just recently lost the election.
Yeah.
Yourself and Trustee Belcher are probably the most outspoken advocates on the board, and I think all of us have our way of communicating, but in terms of advocacy for the first couple of years, most outspoken, you and Trustee Belcher, Brittany will make her points, Trustee Brown make her points. Of course, I'll comment where I see fit. So without you being there as part of the advocacy, and then I'm watching as now the Ms. Hinyard again would start telling the employees to kind of lay in on us and start joining the fight, which is completely improper for a leader. Like we try our hardest to keep the employees out of the middle. But in this administration, the employees are encouraged to just come in and point out everything else, which puts them in a horrible position. But I bring all that up because, we had lost you as an advocate on the team. Now you have the employees just kind of dumping on it. In this particular meeting, I felt like they were going in
really hard.
Not just borderline and on disrespectful. In this instance, it was with Trustee Belcher.
Don't get in front of a board meeting and say what you say. That's all I'm saying. Get your facts straight first before you come to a board meeting.
Tell the people what you've done. Okay, Trustee Belcher, Trustee House, Trustee Norwood, Trustee Tammy Brown. What have you done?
The challenges that we face, I still go in there prayerfully and hopefully that the meeting. So I remember specifically the prayer being about unity and bringing folks together. And then I got the police chief dumping on us, the mayor dumping on us. And then this guy is giving a prayer that just really hurt my spirit. So when being attacked at a certain point in time, I really was calling out each and every one of them that's making statements that I know they were encouraged to make by the mayor's office, but at the same time, we have to start keeping it straightforward on what we're talking about. Stop trying to pretend that you weren't instructed to say something against the board. Stand up to what's right. So it was several things, but I do remember that the early part was another meeting where I'm listening to the prayer. I'm thinking that maybe this is the meeting, and then they came across even more vicious, and that just wasn't the time.
Yeah. Next question I got: what is the current state of the village finances right now?
Village finances is a challenge, big challenge. And I'm saying that we have more bills than we have money. So that's always a challenge. So it's going to take some unique financial abilities. It's going to take collaborations to get us up out of here.
Okay, so here is, all right, in my opinion, this is going to be some meat and potatoes conversation. Maybe I'll back up a little smidgen just to get a running start. I think this is where we're going to see the real divide between Tiffany and Jason. Is he going to be transparent? Is he going to blame people? Is he going to just say, everything is fine, sunshine and rainbows? Or is he going to give what we believe to be a true and transparent commentary on the state of Dolton and his finances? I think this is where the metal is going to meet the meat. This is really where they're going to, divide, in my opinion. And this is probably where he's going to win the election, or he'll really win his vote right here. Let's go.
And then they came across even more vicious. And that just, wasn't the time.
Yeah. Next question I got, what is the current state of the village finances right now?
Village finances is a challenge, big challenge. And I'm saying that we have more bills than we have money. So that's always a challenge. So it's going to take some unique financial abilities. It's going to take collaborations to get us up out of here. I don't want to call it, and I refuse to call it doom and gloom. The village general fund brings in about $27 million per year. So at $27 million per year, there's a path forward. But you have to make sure that you're managing it properly and efficiently, and we can get out of this mess. But we are in a bad state. Lori's report showed at that point in time about $3.5 million worth of debt. Mm-hmm. And we're slowly working towards correcting that, but that's going to take some time. It's going to take some assistance with some of our state representatives, our state senators, collaborative partnerships, and we have to really know how to maneuver all those things to get that path forward, and we're going to get there.
So we ain't talking about turning it over to the state, huh?
My intention is not
Never
to turn it over to the state.
One thing I want to say that as a trustee, when I first got elected, I sat down with you, came to your job, and you broke down the finances, where the money, this is the MFT fund, this is the general fund, this is where this is coming from. And that was really helpful because it's hard when you get in, and you got to have enough, as they say, intellectual curiosity to really break down the taxpayers' money and where it comes from. And you broke it down for me in such a very easy way to understand where we're at when I first came in. So I want to thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
The next question is, what motivated you to bring Lori Lightfoot in?
All right, so let me real quick, because I so far I'm feeling this. I would love for somebody to tell me that Tiffany Henyard sat down and broke down, because she was a trustee, and wrote down the state of the community, blah blah blah, and show those receipts. I don't think anybody's going to be able to show receipts, and that's going to be problematic. I think Jason is, again, I'm not hopefully optimistic. I'm measuredly optimistic. One, because he has a great name. You got to give him credit for that. That's at least 20 votes, at least 20. But even more than that, I think he really does have a grasp of the situation. And at the current moment, we're still like 30 minutes in. He still ain't talked about giving away anything. I'm just saying, he's not leaning on the welfare part. He's leaning on the duties and responsibilities of the servant leaders, the leaders of Dolton. And so far, he's crushing it.
Why? Because you know what they say. Well, if FBI is there, why we need Lori Lightfoot?
Great question.
A few different things now. The previous meeting that we had was a special board meeting. It was right after the TV announcement or the talking about the allegations of rape. Yeah. I want to make sure I'm wording this properly, forgive my fault. But it's right after that. And as a board member, we heard nothing about it. We don't know what our risk is, our exposure. Can't get any answers from the administrator or from the administration, senior team. They're not giving us any answers. So we go to that meeting and we announce that we're going to be looking at having an investigation into all these matters. Yeah. Everybody everybody there was excited. Yes, we need it, and of course we know that there's an FBI investigation going on, but you never know how long that's going to take. Many times it can take 4, 5, and 6 years. And in the condition we're at, we don't have that amount of time to try to figure things out. So we announce it. It's extremely well received by the residents. So fast forward a couple of weeks, we have the opportunity for former Mayor Lightfoot to come out, and her background as a federal prosecutor is what caught me the most. I thought that was extremely powerful, and then the fact that she was a mayor as well means that you have two different hats that are very relevant to what's going on in Dolton. So we felt like from a skill set perspective and a reputation as being forceful, that those skills were going to be needed here in Dolton.
Yeah. So how did the Lori Lightfoot report help?
It helped in several ways. When you have when you have the Lori Lightfoot coming in with her background and knowledge, it applied more pressure that was needed to start getting documentation. It gave us answers that we didn't have before. So many of the reports that we couldn't get to, now we started to get a picture, and a big picture or glaring picture of the financials. In addition to that, it started to ease some of the tension or make the employees and the staff feel like they can begin cooperating with the board. So many of the documents that we have access to now, we didn't have that before then. So I think that it gave us a couple of different advantages that we didn't. And I say us, is not, I always pause, I never want to speak about this as trustees versus mayor. It gave us as a community information that we were entitled to, that we deserved, and we wanted to really make sure that we make the most of it.
Okay, before he jumps in, I wouldn't mind if Jason right here or Edward Steve asked, like, what was it that you needed that you weren't getting? Like a full, like, hey, we weren't getting credit card receipts. We didn't get the light bill. We didn't know whatever. Like, just literally maybe delineate, like, we used to get these reports. He said a financial report, but maybe like even break it down to the very last compound. Like, hey, we were not getting the credit card receipt. We did not get the pension payment receipt. We did not get the union dues receipts, whatever it was. I think that would be really helpful. But this is so far, again, I'm down. I like it. Let's go.
Can you think back, when did they stop? I think this gets lost in the shuffle. When did they stop sending over reports? I think we documented.
Oh, maybe this is it.
They just were not sending over the financial statements. I mean, that's such a big thing.
All the way until last month, we were receiving monthly financial reports. This month, we did not receive a monthly financial report the way that we traditionally would. When we talk about the deficit, last fiscal year through May, the deficit was $2.5 million in our operating account. This year, through the report we got, which was September 30th, I pulled that up as you were speaking. So from May through September, there was an additional $4.2 million of deficit. So you couple those two together, the deficit is growing and it's approaching $7 million.
So imagine not getting the financial reports of the town. It's almost if you're in a house with a husband and a wife, and the husband's just spending money, and the wife manages the money, and the husband say, I'm not going to give you no reports. I'm going to just show you what I'm spending. I'm going to show you what I'm going to buy and deal with it, and I'm not going to give you no credit card statements, nothing. When did that start?
Well, we had, again, we used to talk about the committee reports, and every month we'll come with the report. So from our experience being on the committees, we know each month we need to show up and report what's going on, and that's what we're doing for the residents. I would say maybe around 6 months into there, we would come in and we would still get the financial report, and every month, even with the committee report being stripped off the agenda, I would go in general comments. Well, this month we're 300,000 in the hole. At the time, I'm just highlighting it because it's a point that we need to notice. Take note, because we're going in the wrong direction. Next month will come to $1 million for the year. Next month it was 1.6. And there would be the back and forth argument, oh, no, we're not, but I would have the document in my hand.
That's what they say.
to say, well,
That's
if
crazy.
I'm wrong, I'll do it. And of course, with your skill, you will take it and highlight it, and we will be able to post it to show that there's a genuine place where this report is coming from. So after we consistently kept reporting that that we were going further in the hole, they just stopped sending it to us. It's like, oh, well, I guess the thought process was we're giving the trustees and the community information that we didn't intend to. So they just stopped sending it. Of course, knowing our responsibility, I'm going to report whether you give it to me or not. I'm going to report when you give it. I'm going to tell you what it is. And if I'm not getting it, I'm going to make sure I report that we're no longer getting it, because that's our obligation as well, so that the residents understand if I'm not answering your questions, it's not from a lack of desire. It's because I'm not getting the information, and we should all be concerned.
Yeah. And that's what would inspire. You talk about why did the meetings have to start happening at the Park District? Because that's where we put a lot of this stuff out there, because she was canceling every committee, the whole meeting. And we had to come to the Park District to kind of really talk about the reports that we did or didn't have.
And as you talk about the transition to Park District, there's a couple of other things in there too, because that even started early on when we talk about where the chaos comes from. The very first meeting residents were told, instead of doing citizens address where they can ask questions and you respond, they were told, we're not doing that anymore. You're gonna comment, we'll get back to you whenever, as soon as we can, or something that wasn't being responsive. So we actually looked and shifted.
Real quick, I just want to add this to it because I don't think he's explaining it. You used to be able, everybody's familiar with public comments. We've all seen those, right? It's like 30 minutes, you get 3 minutes each. You come up there and people just kind of give them the business. Well, it used to be actually asking questions and the trustees would respond. Like, hey, Jason, why did we spend $80 million on potholes or whatever like that? And then he would respond back. Well, when Tiffany came in, she changed that to public comment. And public comment, and y'all see it because you've watched Tiffany just kind of sit there and doodle when people are talking about her and talking to her. She's looking very uninterested, unengaged. Well, that's what she's changed it into. But it used to actually be a dialogue back and forth, question and answer. So just moving that on. Let's go.
Did the meetings to the Park District. Well, that's where we started off with the trustees, so that we residents can have a place where their questions can be asked, and we can respond to them, and we can respond to them in a calm environment instead of the toxic environment that the board meeting went to. From there, we're grateful, super grateful to the Park District for their partnership, because then that also opened the door for our board meetings to come, and where we can have that kind of dialogue in a more peaceful place and an environment that can accommodate those with ADA needs, and really just opening up the door for other opportunities.
And keep in mind, remember we got locked out the boardroom. We had to have a board meeting in the parking lot.
Man.
And then remember we got inside and they pulled a phony fire alarm, and just so we wouldn't have a meeting. This is real things that happen.
And sometimes you have to laugh at your pain.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what makes our story so. It's such can't turn away from TV, because these are things that we really should not be discussing or going through, not in a responsible government. But yet, we've been faced with it, and then as a board, we have to find a way to kind of overcome, and then trying to do it in a way that we have dignity. It becomes really, really difficult.
Yeah.
But we're here.
I do want to hit a point that just came to me. I remember at one point they was pushing, we got to get a bond. We got to get a bond. We got to get bonds. Everybody get bonds. Everybody get bonds. And you said that one time real strong, poorly ran government is ran off bonds and loans. Talk about that.
What's really, it's just going to require a mentality shift, because the agenda that they were pushing is that government runs off debt. Government runs off debt. And it's so easy to accept, because we know that the country has a national debt. Yeah. And so that was a really easy narrative to sell. But in local governments, it doesn't have to be that way. And there's other communities that run themselves fiscally responsible. So my point there is then that government doesn't run off debt. Poorly run governments run off of debt. So you don't intentionally just go and say, okay, we're going to go get a bond. Bond should have a purpose. And we need to explain how we're going to get the money, what we're going to spend it on. And if we're doing it but with the best of intentions, hopefully we're doing it for a new project that's going to last in the community for 100 years, and we have to pay on it over 20 years. Yeah. But just the agenda being pushed, we're just going to get a bond, government runs off a bond, I just rejected that statement, and I still do.
Man, good stuff. When is the next Lori Lightfoot report?
The next Lori Lightfoot report, we are expecting to have it before the end of January. I think that we'll be looking to try to announce that at our next board meeting, but we just want to finalize the details.
Okay. And what do you expect out this next one?
The report is honestly an independent report. Yeah. So while we may provide people that we think should be interviewed or spoken with, Lori's first report, she kind of ran off and followed the evidence where it took her. And I expect this to be the same thing. We may get a brief preview a few days ahead of time, if at all, but we want it to be an independent report that people can really get facts that we did not steer the direction of it.
All right. So next up, Mayor House. Mayor Jason House. What inspired you this time to run for mayor?
I'm inspired by the residents. And when I say the residents, the way that we, of course, as a board, but also the community have all come together. I think that we have a great team. And as we sit down and we talk about what our next direction is, I can really see a vision where we can have financial stability, where we can work together, or Dolton can be the community that, not just the community it was, but grow into the next generation of representing everybody with pride.
Mm-hmm. And keep in mind, you got the most votes out of anybody last election. You got more votes than the mayor did.
So I want to give credit to, and credit that gets overlooked. Clerk Key actually had the most votes.
Yeah.
Clerk Key had 100 more votes than I did, and humbly she gets overlooked. But I will say that as I talk about the last election, every 4 years you work hard, and if you pay attention to the residents, you hope that they appreciated the work you did, and then the votes will speak for it. So I would say that it's humbling and gratifying that during that election I was able to get that level of votes. And as we come into this election, I've done everything that I can to be a good trustee or be a good steward, and also work with our residents and work with our board members. So I'm prayerful, hopeful, while expecting, because I know some people say walk in your purpose, but you really want to put yourself out on the line and just make sure that we're doing everything we can to win the hearts of the community and do right by them.
Yeah. Could you hit the point of people say, why the fighting? Why the fighting? And you said, well, I heard you say one time that when you see the money being blown the way it is, if there's no chaos, the people won't pay attention. Talk about that.
Well, why the fighting is, we started off over 5 million in a surplus, but as the Lori Lightfoot's report drew some criticism, got a lot of praise, but I have not heard anybody say that they're contradicting the numbers that were presented.
What's next, you can see, is a graphic that depicts where we started as of April, where the village started as of April of 22, with positive of $5.6 million in the general fund, and where we are as of May of 2024, which is a negative $3.65 million.
And that showed over $5 million of surplus in 2022 to over $3 million, which is a $9 million swing in less than 2 years. As a trustee, we are obligated to make sure that the community knows. And if you have $9 million that's been blown in that amount of time, there's supposed to be tension. You're not supposed to have peace and calm. We got to figure out what's going on. I mean, I would say, if I thought about it, like, let's say that husband and wife.
You flip some
tables.
tables.
Got a reserve checking account that you do for emergencies. $5,500 put in there just for those emergencies. You're not paying attention. You know I got an emergency stash. And then you come back later, you discover spouse has been writing checks. And then when you finally look at the account, you got $3,500 overdrawn. Yeah. How would you feel? That means that that's $9,000 that went in a swing. And not only that, to make it worse, that's $9 million I didn't even have. So out of the $9 million you spent, I got $3,500 I got to go and make up. I think I would be upset. I think anybody would be upset. Now take that from thousands and make it millions, which is what Dolton is facing.
Good point.
Good analogy. Good analogy, Jason.
You go to imagine going to your mobile banking, it's negative $3,000.
Yes.
And you see all these checks, and then the husband says, "Oh no, I look what I bought. Look what I bought. Don't pay attention to that."
That's right.
And you how dare you question me about how I'm spending the money? Yeah, that's real. Why would your leadership be different? What would be different about your leadership in the mayor position?
Okay, I'm gonna jump in before he says anything. Shout out to everybody who's jumped in. Shout out to everybody who's already hit the like button. All right. Everything Jason so far has said has been based in tangible reality. It's not this lovey-dovey feeling, emotional type of stuff. This is a leader here, y'all. I'm impressed. Now, whether or not, Jason dots every I and crosses every T, again, he gets credit from me because he has a great name. But notice he's still not talking about intangible emotional things. Like, oh, I'm just loving on the residents and believe in me residents without anything that's anchored to something tangible or reality. I think that's a great point how he's doing now. He's about to say, how is his leadership going to be different? I want to hear it. Let's go.
It will be truly inclusive. And I'm talking truly inclusive in terms of making sure that we have our committees, the committees are running, and it's something that I feel that we're demonstrating right now. This is not something that we're talking as a hypothetical. If we look at the board meetings when Ms. Henry's present and when she's not present, the way that those meetings are run is smooth. Everybody talks to one another. Sometimes we have disagreements. Sometimes we pull things off the agenda. But at all times, we work together to have a meeting that is dignified for the community. Separate from that, we open the doors of communication for the residents during those meetings. If they have a question, we respond to the question. If we can't get the answer right then, we get back to those residents. But it's open communication, it's done in a smooth way, and that's just step one of the things that we can do, because as we start to work together, then we start getting things done in each one of the committees. And it's not going to be done because one person, Jason House is no savior, and I'm not trying to pretend to be the savior. I think that we as a team have so much talent, and if we know the skills that are on this board, Brittany with real estate, Tammy with human resources and knowledge of business, yourself with videography, communication, Kiana Belcher, background in police as well as finance, Clerk Key with her experience in housing CHA. I mean, the talent is there, it's always been there. It's just being able to pull that out of each one of us. And when I say that about us as board members, let's look at the talent that's come to the table with the residents that have come to support us. Well, you got Dan Lee and his ability and his tenacity is really what led us to get assistance with the Attorney General. We weren't getting the answers that he'll selflessly, I'm sure he'll talk about the team of people that he had working with him. Sherry Hatcher, Mary Avant, Valeria Stubbs, former trustees. We have some of the former trustees that are working collectively and in support of us, with former trustee Valeria Stubbs, former trustee Robert Pearson, former trustee Dwayne Muhammad. You also have the former mayor that we've been able to kind of open up doors and have communication, all being able to work together for one purpose and one goal. And as we pull at all those talents, because I've always been told, if you want to know the answer to the answers to the question are right in the room. If you just sit back, listen long enough, and you'll be able to pull it. And this community has attorneys, CPAs, laborers. The answers are in this community. We just got to we have to bring the right group together so that we can push it forward.
This is definitely a we team. That's how you. Jason is definitely the inclusive person. He listens to everybody. It is not a my way to highway type deal. The team of trustees is really inclusive. What do you think? What do you think? And let's come up with the best idea. And let's talk before we get to the board meeting, so you don't have all that back and forth.
That's right.
That's the way good government's run. And you kind of hit on it. You talked about the team, the people that's running with you.
Yes.
Which includes myself, Brittany Norwood, Kiana Belcher, and Allison Key. Talk about the economic plan for the village.
So, of course, we know that the economic development plan is going to be a critical part of it. And as we talk, I want to hit on platform, as you mentioned, before kind of going into this one, because there are the 5 parts that we're trying to look at. One, which I'm big on, is changing the narrative of Dolton. That's first and foremost. Second, of course, being economic development. Third, financial stability. Fourth, improve our infrastructure. And fifth, being public safety. So those are the 5 points that we really want to make sure that we're hitting on. I'm going to come back to changing the narrative of Dolton before going into economic development, because I really, I'm really, first, I wanted to talk about changing the culture of Dolton. Another resident, Kevin Bowen, came up with the slogan, changing the narrative of Dolton. So I want to make sure I'm giving him his due credit in doing that. But what that does speak to is changing our culture. For the last 12 years, Dolton has been divided. It's been known for board versus mayor, board versus mayor, board versus mayor. And we have to really come back to work on being inclusive of one another. And when you have board versus mayor, that starts putting residents, I got to pick a side. I got to pick a side here. I got to pick a side there. Who do I choose? And then you see a lot of viciousness, not only between the board and the mayor.
Residents.
It carries over to the employees. It carries over to the residents. And we're trying to figure out how do we be disagreeable and civil.
Yeah.
And that's going to be so important. So we have to embrace some of the hard conversations. We have to be able to be in the room with each other. Everybody is a part of this. Everybody is a part of this equation. And because of the level of dysfunction that Dolton faces, it's expanded beyond just the board and the mayor and the residents. Now we have people from Texas and Georgia and everybody weighing in.
Shout out.
And I keep hearing this statement of, okay, well, those are outsiders and insiders. No, they are part of Dolton's story now. And I think we need to learn to embrace that and listen to what people say and make the best of it. Because while they're a part of the story now, we want them to be a part of the story as we transition and become a better community.
Shout out to the undocumented Dolton residents. He just affirmed us, man. He just basically affirmed us. He gave us our citizenship. Shout out. We are the undocumented, well, I guess we're now Dolton residents. I'm like Dolton Deep South resident.
And inviting people to come and help us, because clearly we need help. But it first starts with us, being able to be vulnerable and transparent enough to recognize that we have challenges that we're going to work on and we're going to fix.
Dude, you're good point. Give me an example of that one thing that y'all recently done to really encourage transparency with the Dolton website.
Well, Dolton website, after the Lori report, after we started getting some employees more comfortable that the board is there to protect and help them out, we've been able to get access to Village of Dolton website, and we've made some changes to the website. So we're now posting up there financials going back anywhere from 4 to 6 years, warrant list, any warrant list that we have, any information that we're able to get our hands on, we'll put on the website. In the interim, residents, if they would email me, and it may be things that would normally take a FOIA, but because I knew that FOIAs weren't being responded to, if I had access to it, I would send it to them to circumvent the FOIA need, because we really are trying to make sure that people know we don't have anything to hide. As we come to the meeting and say we don't have it, if we didn't have it, we couldn't provide it. But if we could, I felt that people were entitled to it. And that's whether there's somebody that's supportive, not supportive. It's a government document that we can provide. We should do that.
Man, we can't hit that point enough. If we spent it in this record, the residents should have it.
Yes.
So the new website has gone back, you say 4 or 5 years?
Yes.
So recently when residents been seeing, there's stuff on the warrant list, it's because of the trustees. I've actually put the warrant list on the website.
Give credit to the staff.
Give credit to the staff.
Give credit
The staff put the actual document, because this administration didn't want none of that records out there.
Yeah.
And so that is a one clear proof that they believe in transparency and open government. You have nothing to hide.
It's a step in the right direction. I don't want to just take credit over a website, and it's just showing progress. I think we have many phases, and I don't want to take too much credit for something that people are entitled to. But I will say that, yes, it is. If we're looking for signs of where we're heading and what we want to do, that is a step showing that of what we're working on doing.
Yeah. I think it's a big thing, because there's been years of non-transparency and hiding documents, and then at the same time hiding them and then publicly saying they have everything.
That's wild.
So,
that is so wild.
So let's talk about, as we come to a close, talk about your economic plan for the village.
We have several different things. And as I talked about the platform, of course, economic development is going to be on there. Yeah. We want to be really clear as we talk about these points. Everybody's platform, when they come into these positions or when they run for it, they're going to say, I'm going to do economic development, I'm going to do public safety. I think changing the culture is probably maybe one that's a little bit more unique. We're going to do stuff for the youth. So I think we really need to make sure that we can talk about people who really can execute on what they're going to do as well. And as far as economic development, we have already started. We had tea with the trustees where we introduced a developer that's looking at doing something on the west end of town, 147th and Harvard, talking about mixed-use commercial buildings along with condos on the top end, townhomes that can be done beautifully. And we introduced that to the residents to get feedback instead of just coming and forcing it down their throat. We've also
Okay.
talked with a gentleman that for the last 6 years had been looking to do a new project over at Needles Park, nice stadium sports facility. It's in the infancy phases, but it sounds like there's some good progress there. We have 2 businesses, one being LFI. I'm sure LFI wouldn't mind us talking about it because he's had a lot of challenges. But that's the business that brought the Food for Less into our community. And they have some other proposals that can be out there once the village is stabilized and able to move things forward. And that's somebody that we've worked well with over the last, really, I would say I've worked well with them over the last 8 years. We have a couple of businesses that are waiting on us to stabilize. I will not name because they are in fear of their business licenses being developed. You got Dr. Scott, who has that wonderful plaza in downtown Dolton, free indeed, but that whole mall is 40,000 square feet. And she has a wonderful plan, nonprofit businesses. She has a thrift store going in there. So that's another one that's already shovel ready to go, making sure that as soon as we come in, we should start seeing some action. So those are just infancy plans without going into the big box stores and those kind of talks that we need to have the further. But I see no reason why Sibley can't look like Halsted does over there in Homewood and have businesses up and down there. It should look that way. So you look at some of the new developments, even on Torrance, what they got in Lansing, studying some of the things they're doing and what we can bring over into Dalton.
I'm sorry, y'all. Look, I want to not like Jason House. I want to find a reason to not think that he's just a scam artist or he's just gonna Shanghai the people of Dalton. Take this clip and roll it back and listen to what his economic plan is. It's all about bringing businesses to Dalton, serving the community. He didn't say anything about handouts. He said nothing about food. Now, he wants to support the food pantry. I think her name's Dr. Scott. He wants free indeed, but that's a business that's ultimately funneling money into giving to the community. Everything he talked about was growth for the community and allowing a business to come in and provide services for the community. Y'all find Tiffany doing that. Bring me a video of Tiffany doing that, and I will 100% showcase it here on this channel. Jason House is going to, I really do hope as a new resident of Dalton that he's able to do this. He's already telling you, like, we got stuff that's waiting in the wings. Once I take the solemn oath to be mayor, this stuff is going to be shovel ready. Shovel ready means that we already got the plans, they got the money, they got the land. All they need to do is me to be in place and say green light. That's it. Y'all, I'm right here with her. I agree with you. He comes across as just a very clear spoken gentleman that has a plan and a vision for a better Dalton. I'm all about it. Yo, yeah, Tiffany's showing out, Boston. I'm really interested in seeing what will be Tiffany's response to this video. Because remember, every Tuesday she was doing that. She was supposed to be doing that little live stream. Or maybe it was on Saturday. I don't know. I want to see her next live stream that she does. I think it's going to be very interesting in light of this, because this is a shellacking right here. Let's go finish up.
And it starts with stable government.
Absolutely.
Starts with stable government. And could you also hit on the services for the seniors and the programs and stuff like that?
All right, here's services.
Programs for the senior are absolutely necessary. In talking with them on the phone in the recent weeks, that's a big thing. And those are things that we need to continue. We need to make sure our seniors are taken care of. We need to do our wellness checks, and we will make sure that money is always allocated in the budget for senior services to make sure that they're able to get what's necessary.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else I want to hit? I know you hit at one board meeting. You talked about you shouldn't have to get a lawyer to get a business license. Could you explain that a little bit?
What we've discovered in the process of getting business licenses is that the business owners will come in, they'll apply for their business license, and they're having the same challenge with liquor license, but it was even more absurd when we talked about business licenses. To come in a process that should take no more than 3 days, they're coming back weeks and weeks and weeks, up to 6 and 7 months. So the board, when recognizing this challenge, decided that we would implement the ordinance that says that these things will come and get voted on by the board. So we were successful in approving more than 20 business licenses for people that were having a difficult time because they needed those licenses to get their insurance renewals and other the state government licenses to continue their business. And these are big name stores. One of them was Menards, which is one of the anchor stores of our community.
Right.
So I think that the process for getting a license needs to be much more friendly, much more efficient. That's our job, is to make sure we create an environment where our businesses can succeed. And once we create that environment, people will come, they will thrive. But if that environment is much more difficult, then it's not attractive to come to Dalton's. We have to be better stewards to the businesses that come here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's steward word
on
again.
that note, Mayor House, I thank you for sitting down with me and on our channel. Please subscribe to the Dolton Trustee YouTube page. We're going to be doing more interviews.
Absolutely.
I think one of the greatest points that you made has been a history of board versus mayor, trustees versus mayor. I called one resident. He said, I want to support you, but what's going to be different? What's going to make you different? Why should they trust you?
I think you want to take a look at, they say look at everybody and their style and how they work. And I think we're doing the job right now, and we're doing it with some obstacles and barriers. So once we remove those barriers, I think we're really going to fly. We've included everybody. We'll continue to do that and do it with pride. So I think that's what's going to be very different.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You know, mild-mannered, professional, get to the point. Ain't a lot of arguing. We don't need all that. We get to the business. We handle some stuff. We handle it with respect and dignity, and we change the narrative in Dolton. And that's what Dolton needs. And like I said, I've lived through the fights, the 6-hour board meetings.
Oh my gosh.
Residents are tired of that.
Well, the residents are tired. I'm in the board meetings and I'm tired of it. Let's be honest. And I don't even know why there shouldn't need to be all that explaining. The saying is, well done is better than well said. Yeah. So the moment that we're going through extra levels of explaining and not presenting a new project, it's probably a hint that something's going wrong. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that we, of course, let people know what's happening. And if we're going to do explaining, it should be a new initiative. Mm-hmm. We shouldn't be going for hours and hours and hours explaining how the finances got where they're at. Mm-hmm. And if we did the job the way we're supposed to, we don't need to. It's clear cut. But when things are going wrong, you have to do a lot more explaining, and you should.
A lot of smoke and mirrors.
That's right.
Man, appreciate it, brother.
All right.
Yes, sir. And make sure you go to our website, votehouse2025.info. Go to our YouTube page, our social media page. Plug in, lock in with us, and you can sign up for our email blast or text message blast. And we're going to stay in communication with the residents, and we're going to continue to do these interviews so you can know. And you can come out and meet the candidates. You can meet Jason House. You can meet myself. You can meet Brittany Norwood, Kiana Belcher, Allison Key, Tammy Brown, and ask us any question that you want. There's nothing to hide. There's nothing off the table. So on that note, let's continue to move forward, and we look forward to seeing you out door to door. Peace.
Shout out to the trustees, Dolton trustees page. Shout out to brother Steve, who is the interviewer, and of course Jason House. No, he's being tongue in cheek, if you will. He's being optimistic that Jason House will become mayor of Dolton, so he's just calling him Mayor House. He's just being tongue in cheek, but of course there's still an election that needs to happen because I don't think there's any reason to believe that he won't unseat Tiffany Henyard. And I think she realizes that as well. If you've noticed some of her rhetoric, her titles have diminished from her rhetoric on the Saturday podcast or whatever that thing was at Stream. I don't remember her using the term super mayor. Excuse me. And then most recently yesterday at the Thornton Township meeting, I don't remember her introducing herself as super mayor or anything of that nature. So I'm noticing her title usage is starting to just whittle down a little bit. I wonder if there's a reason for it. I do appreciate each and every one of y'all. So, hey, let's do this again real soon. Thank you again. And until then, everybody, grace and peace. Take care.
that light for Deal Christian. Yo, for Deal Christian, smash that bell. For DMC, yo, smash it, just smash it. Hit that light for Deal Christian. For Deal Christian, smash that bell. For DMC, yo, smash it, just smash it. Hit that light for Deal Christian.